Let's now compare the costs of using remotely hosted versions of some of the larger models offered by DeepSeek AI with the costs of using OpenAI. We're going to be comparing DeepSeek R1, aka the largest of the R1 series models from DeepSeek AI, with OpenAI's O1 model, because O1 is the OpenAI model that's most similar to DeepSeek R1. And for shits and giggles, even though it's not a part of the R1 series, we're also going to be comparing DeepSeek V3 with OpenAI's GPT-4o, because GPT-4o is the OpenAI model that's most similar to DeepSeek V3. The only prerequisite concept you need to understand to follow along is to know what a token is. In this context, a token is one building block of a particular AI's vocabulary. Most of the time, a token is going to be a word or a part of a word, but to be clear, a token represents any common building block of an AI's vocabulary. If you're interested in learning more about this token stuff, I recommend researching AI tokenizers or byte pair encoding as a starting point. In the following cost comparisons, you're going to hear the term input tokens, which generally speaking means the data that you send to an AI, aka the input tokens represent your prompts. And you're also going to hear the term output tokens. Generally speaking, output tokens means the data that you receive back from an AI in response to your prompts. Disclaimer number 1. At the time of recording, I don't seem to be able to purchase credits from the DeepSeek AI API platform, but I was able to find several American-based DeepSeek endpoints, and I did test them, so DeepSeek does work. But for the purposes of these cost comparisons, let's just assume that the DeepSeek AI API works and that the marketed prices are accurate. Disclaimer number 2. All prices shown are a snapshot of what things are like at the time of recording and are subject to change. Let's go! While OpenAI's O1 API charges $15 per 1 million input tokens, DeepSeek AI's R1 API charges only 55 cents per 1 million input tokens. And while OpenAI's O1 API charges $60 per 1 million output tokens, DeepSeek AI's R1 API charges $2.19 per 1 million output tokens. So, assuming comparable levels of intelligence as hinted in the research paper, this would imply that using DeepSeek AI's R1 API is approximately 27 times cheaper than using OpenAI's O1 API. As many people are worried about American national data security when it comes to the topic of DeepSeek, and rightfully so, let's also compare the cost of using DeepSeek R1 hosted by Fireworks AI, an American-based company. While OpenAI's O1 API charges $15 per 1 million input tokens, Fireworks AI's R1 API charges $3 per 1 million input tokens. And while OpenAI's O1 API charges $60 per 1 million output tokens, Fireworks AI's R1 API charges $8 per 1 million output tokens. So, assuming comparable levels of intelligence as hinted in the research paper, this would imply that using Fireworks AI's R1 API is 5 to 7 times cheaper than using OpenAI's O1 API. Remember, up till this point, all of DeepSeek AI's models have been open sourced, so companies all around the world can run them on their own infrastructure. As mentioned for completeness, let's also compare the System 1 style GPT-4o to the System 1 style DeepSeek V3, just to get a broader overview of the cost implications presented by DeepSeek's arrival on the international AI stage. While OpenAI's GPT-4o API charges $2.50 per 1 million input tokens, DeepSeek AI's DeepSeek V3 API charges only 14 cents per 1 million input tokens. And while OpenAI's GPT-4o API charges $10 per 1 million output tokens, DeepSeek AI's DeepSeek V3 API charges only 28 cents per 1 million output tokens. So, assuming comparable levels of intelligence, using DeepSeek's DeepSeek V3 API is 17 to 35 times cheaper than using OpenAI's GPT-4o API. And finally, let's compare the cost of self-hosting R1 against using the OpenAI O1 API. This is definitely not going to be applicable to everyone, but it's good to know. Remember, because DeepSeek models are open source, you can host them yourself. Here's an analysis by Alex Comerford, an ML engineer at Near AI, that compares the cost of self-hosting R1 on GCP versus using OpenAI's O1 API. There are a lot of variables at play here, but assuming you rent a beefy machine with 8 GPUs from GCP at the rate of $20 per hour for a single hour and are sending and receiving a non-stop stream of prompts and responses, then the cost of using a self-hosted R1 model is about 2 times more expensive than using the OpenAI O1 API. So, at the moment, compared to using the OpenAI O1 API, from a cost savings perspective, self-hosting R1 really only makes sense if you have a use case where you're constantly calling the model with almost no pauses, and if you can acquire some machines from some cloud provider, like for example, GCP or AWS, at a rate of under $10 per hour per machine. The other scenario I can think of regarding self-hosting R1 is if you own your GPUs. If you own your GPUs or your machine, your hardware, et cetera, that you're using to run these models, if you own those machines and the costs of running them are under $10 per hour per machine, then yes, you eventually will recoup the investments that you made into acquiring those machines. Hopefully that makes sense. If I said anything inaccurate, leave a comment. So in conclusion, the latest batch of models from DeepSeek AI are definitely something to pay attention to over the course of 2025. But my general assessment is that collectively, we have to test them a lot more to see how good they really are. If you have data concerns in respect to American national security, rightfully so, I recommend using a self-hosted or American-hosted version of whatever DeepSeek AI model you're most interested in. Here are some US-based AI hosting providers you can check out to start with. If you're using DeepSeek in production, leave a comment letting us know your experience. And Sha Chu Jen. I think that means see you next time in Mandarin. Peace.